Good evening, everyone. Can I be heard clearly, including all the way at the back? Wonderful. It's a great privilege to be here with you tonight. I want to begin by expressing my profound thanks to Rabbi Mendel Mintz. Thank you, Rabbi Mintz, for granting us this opportunity to be with your Kehillah. It means a great deal to us. And the work that you're allowing us to apply here is of vital importance to Am Yisrael at this time. I also want to reiterate my thanks to Mr. David Sterling for helping to arrange this gathering. And I also would like to express my profound thanks to my co-founder in the Miriam Institute, Ms. Rosita Panini. You're here. Hi, Rosita, raise your hand just so everyone can see. This is Rosita Panini. And Rosita is the co-founder of our organization. Without her work, that which we undertake would not be possible. I encourage all of you to get to know her during the course of our time together. And when we conclude at 6:30 p.m. this evening, the formal part of our gathering, we will be here for informal conversations, and we hope that you'll take us up on that invitation to converse far beyond anything that we discuss here at the podium. I'd also like to take a moment to please ask everybody to kindly switch their cell phones to silent at this time, if you haven't done so already. But I don't want you to switch them off, because during the course of the evening, we're going to ask you to become friends of the Instagram pages of the family members of both of the hostages who are represented by their loved ones here today. So we'll come to that in just a few moments. In his absence, I want to thank my colleague Richard Offenbacher, and I want to thank the family members of the hostages who are here with us today, those being Galia David and Eli David. They are the mother and brother, respectively, of Evyatar David, who has been kidnapped and held in captivity since October the 7th, and Aviram Meir and Orit Meir, who is the uncle and the mother of Almog Meir Jan, who also was kidnapped on October the 7th and is held in captivity to this day. One final note of thanks to the security who is keeping us. You can't hear me? You want me on the microphone? Thank you. One final note of thanks is that I want to express our appreciation to the security downstairs who are keeping us safe. And thank you also, Inga, for everything that you've done to bring this about. It would not have happened without you. We're very, very appreciative to you. At the end of this evening, you'll be able to invest in the work of bringing home the hostages by purchasing bracelets, necklaces, and badges or pins that show your support for the fight to bring Israel's hostages home. They're on sale downstairs. The funds for that go directly to the effort to continue the public awareness campaign for our abducted Israelis. And I will speak to you a bit more about that as we draw things to a close. To come to the crux of our event here today, I want to tell you a little bit about myself so that you understand how it is that we convened this evening. As you heard from the Rabbi and Benjamin, I was born and raised in the United Kingdom. That's why I have this ridiculous British accent. I moved to the State of Israel after graduating university. I am a combat veteran of service in the Israel Defense Forces. I'm now retired. I was a heavy machine gunner, and I had the high privilege, and it is a privilege, of serving in the Second Lebanon War of 2006, Operation Pillar of Defense in 2012, and Operation Protective Edge in 2014. I make mention of that because I want you to know that anything I speak about today, the fight for Israel, the fight to bring back our hostages, these are fights and battles for which I have been and would be willing to lay down my life in the pursuit of. And if that renders me a little bit unique in this room, please know that over in the State of Israel right now, there are 300,000 individuals on the borders protecting that country on behalf of all of us who are filled with the very same conviction and then some. I moved to the State of Israel because of Jew hatred. Jew hatred that befell my older brother Jonathan, who at 14 was beaten so severely in an anti-Semitic attack that he had to undergo 3 liver transplants as a consequence of the injuries he sustained. In 2020, Jonathan, who in the intervening years between 1994, when that attack took place, and 2020 had gone on to marry and to have a daughter, Jonathan had to undergo a fourth liver transplant, which is rather unheard of. And I found myself in the position of managing his medical care at that time from afar during COVID. And I make mention of this because during that transplant process, I learned a very vital lesson that is relevant to our discussion today. A week prior to his transplant, I was telephoned by his anesthesiologist, and his anesthesiologist said to me, "Benjamin, you need to make arrangements for Jonathan's passing. You need to bring over the family who were in Israel at the time. They would make special arrangements to grant them access, even during COVID, because he was going to expire. They were unable to find him a liver." Now, as they were looking for a cadaveric liver, I was busy coordinating my younger brother Raphael, the fifth of 7 children, who had traveled over to the UK, ready to have 70% of his liver resected in order to transplant it into my brother Jonathan. It's called a living donor regraft. It's quite a rare surgery. Now, about 24 hours before that surgery was scheduled to go ahead, I was contacted by another one of Jonathan's surgical team. My brother's name is Jonathan. And he said to me that because Jonathan's health had deteriorated so badly, there was no chance of them carrying out the living donor regraft. And given that there was no cadaveric liver, a liver from somebody who was deceased, there was no chance of him being transplanted. And this continued. And these surgeons were lobbying me very, very forthrightly to make these arrangements to say goodbye to my brother. And the reason was that during the course of that final week, his health had deteriorated. He, having been admitted into the hospital with liver failure, he'd then gone into lung failure, he'd then gone into kidney failure, and he was one course of medical treatment away from going into heart failure, which would have meant his demise. And as the surgeon was laying all of these realities out for me, he said something that taught me an important lesson, which was, he said to me, but he might recover from the kidney failure, he might recover from the lung failure, but then we still don't have a liver. And until he had said that comment in a rather flippant way, I had grown up being under the misapprehension that when organs went into failure, that was permanent, that there was no recovery from that. So if a liver went into failure, there was no way of recovering from that. That can be the case with a liver. But other organs are different. If the lungs go into failure, you can recover from that. If the kidneys go into failure, in some cases, you can recover from that. And hearing the fact that there was an outside chance of this recovery, but understanding that there was one nonetheless, I told them that under no circumstances would we approve of Jonathan being switched off any machines. Ultimately, about an hour after that conversation, the liver was found. Jonathan was successfully transplanted, and just a week ago he gave birth, his wife gave birth more accurately, to his second child, a son. So, thank you. So I make mention of all of that because within that story was the lesson that failure, even terrible failure, even sinister failure, even tragic failure, does not need to be fatal. Failure does not need to be fatal. And this is pertinent to the situation in Israel today. Because over in the states of Israel today, our country is at war, the like of which I don't believe we've seen since the founding of the state. The number of soldiers who have been killed in action continues to increase. We had 240 people kidnapped from our country. We had 1,200 murdered in a single day. And the number of soldiers killed since October 7th has reached the appalling figure of 500. Now, that's not in the fighting in Gaza, that's inclusive of the attack that took place on October the 7th. And I can't stand here in front of a sophisticated, caring audience such as this and paper that over as anything other than failure. It was a failure of our government. It was a failure of our defense establishment. It was a failure of our senior officers. It was a failure of our ability to be ready at all times to take our enemies at their words and to fight back when they threatened us. But what we're seeing today, by way of our ongoing success in the fighting inside the Gaza Strip, is that when it comes to the state of Israel and the people of Israel, failure is not fatal. In actual fact, the state of Israel is in the midst, I believe, of stepping into its finest hour, possibly since the founding of our state. As our soldiers fight, as our soldiers battle, and as our soldiers prevail inside the battlefield. And the international community, of course, will criticize them. It will seek to put them on trial, but I can assure you, ultimately it won't lay a finger upon any of our soldiers because, as the saying says, "Al tadin et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo," do not judge your fellow until you stand in his shoes. I have worn the shoes of the soldiers of the IDF, and I know the purity of their heart and the purity of their minds and the purity of their operations in the field, and all of you can and should be proud of them, all of you. Today, we're gathered here to learn from speakers who oddly don't wish to be here. Families who find themselves in a situation for which they never asked, in the midst of a struggle that I don't know how any of us would rise to face down. And they are representing hostages who have been singled out among those who have been singled out to be forgotten and who are the least likely to be returned by way of any prisoner exchange because their sons have been designated what are called men of age, men between the age of 18 and 50 who are cynically portrayed by Hamas as being technical enemy combatants. So our goal here today is to first of all allow you to hear from each of them, to allow you to learn about each of their family members, to ask questions from them, and thereafter for you to help to drive forward into the public consciousness the plight of these two Jewish men. Almog 21 years old, and Evyatar David, who's 23, just turned 23 as they had a birthday about 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, right? Last week, 1 week ago. We cannot forget these men, just as you would not want anyone to forget your sons. And these sons are your sons. These are the sons of Am Yisrael. Before I call on Eli and Galia to speak, I just want to make mention of two things that our organization does when we are not bringing hostage families throughout the international community. The first is we build leadership. Our organization has an official partnership with the United States Department of Defense. They are junior financial partners in the dispatch of US military cadets from the US Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps, all of whom will be officers in their respective service branches for a minimum of 5 years. We bring them to the death camps in Poland for 3 days, and then for 12 days for a strategy and policy tour of the state of Israel. These are not Jewish cadets. We bring them in groups of 50 each summer. The US Department of Defense pays a third of that. Our organization pays 2/3 of those costs. In addition to that, we bring active officers of the United States Army to do the very same. We bring them to Israel for a 12-day tour of the state of Israel. These are people who are rotating in as professors at the US military academies, military professors, and they then go on to command positions beyond that. And we are now partnering with the United States Army War College to bring colonels who are to become generals to the death camps in Poland and onto Israel before they enter into their strategic positions. The reason for that is because these people are guaranteed 100% of them to go on to positions of leadership and to deploy around the world and to rub shoulders with officers from the Israel Defense Forces. The second thing that our organization does, among several others, is that we bring elite graduate students from universities throughout the English-speaking world for 10-day policy tours to the state of Israel. We then bring them together in a connected group to write, speak, opine on, and also to bring about pro-Israel events on their university campuses. And I don't think I need to tell you just how embattled the campuses are today. We'd be happy to talk to you more about that. For now, I would just like to ask that we bring forward, please. Actually, I think we'll start with the video. This is a video of Evyatar David, and after that, I'd like to ask for Eli and Galia to come and join me for a conversation. Please direct your attention to the screen.
This is Evyatar, kidnapped by Hamas and held captive on Gaza Strip. Evyatar is 22 years old from Kfar Saba. He is young and gentle, always surrounded by his friends. He works as a shift manager on a coffee house. He loves music, especially rock, and he is a talented guitarist. He loves life and an amazing son to Galia and Avishai, and a great brother to Eli and Yela. On Saturday, October 7th, Evyatar just wanted to celebrate life with 4 of his friends at the Nova party. He risked his life by helping others escape while he was surrounded by Hamas terrorists and found himself in hell. Please help us bring Evyatar back home.
So, Galia, I just wanted to ask you to begin by telling us a few words about Evyatar, if you would.
First of all, thank you for coming. Evyatar was kidnapped from the Nova Festival. He texted me about 7:43 a.m. that he and his friends are going home because the party is bombing. And since then, I didn't hear from him. We know nothing about him. And this is what I've got, a post of him. Almost 3 months. Two of his best friends were murdered. And another one was kidnapped with him by Hamas. My younger daughter, she posted in Instagram that she looked for her brother, and she got a picture, a screen picture, and she shouted, "Mother, Mama." I look at this picture for just, I think, a second. And obviously, I knew that my boy. The videos I can't see, I never see, and I won't see them because it's break me for pieces, and I know I couldn't afford it because we must keep on going. We must keep on believe, and we must to have the power for the moment that he will come back. It's very difficult to me to talk, and Eli will continue.
So, first, Benjamin said that my brother is 23 years old. And the video you saw, it says 22 because last week he turned 23 in captivity. And we tried to do anything in our power to send him a message using the Israeli press, which we assume that there's a chance that he listens to. Maybe he watched TV, maybe someone there listens to the radio. And for us, it was a very big mission to give him a sign that we are fighting for him. And we'll do anything in our power. We'll travel to anywhere around the world to actually help him. So I'm here to talk about him. He's my younger brother. We also have a younger sister. He's in the middle. He's a very talented guitar player. If you know Avenged Sevenfold, that's his favorite band. He also loves video games, and he really loves his friends. He has many good friends, also from the US, because he went to Birthright several times, and they keep writing us on a weekly basis. And he know them for like, I don't know, it's a week-long program, I think, and he has so many friends from these programs. His friends keep telling us that he's like the psychologist of the group. He sits quietly. He has a very quiet personality, but he's the man that if you have a problem, you know that you go to him, because he will listen. He can listen for hours, and he will give you a humble advice, because I think he really believes in the good nature of people. And he's also a very loving son. I know that he has a lot of respect for my parents, and it's important for him. It's Chabad Jewish. He gives them a hug and a kiss each time that he's home, and they are also home. And he went to that festival to celebrate. We actually, on October 6th, we sat to a Shabbat dinner, and we have kind of tradition that after every Shabbat dinner, we sit and play together, sing together. He plays the guitar, I play the piano, and we all sing together. But at that time, he was in a hurry because he had to go south to the festival. And he gave us a hug and a kiss, like every Friday night. And he took my mom's car, picked up his friends. And it's something usual. He does it on a monthly, if not a weekly basis. He goes to festivals, he goes to parties. He loves it. He loves to dance, and he loves the electronic music. It's some kind of a tribe, this Nova Festival type of parties. And on 6:30 a.m. on October 7th, we all woke up. Missiles were shot also in Kfar Saba, which is our hometown, which is very unusual to wake up to sirens in our hometown, because it's northern to Tel Aviv. So we woke up and we ran to the bomb shelter, and as my mom said, she texted him and he said, they're blowing up the party. And he literally meant these words, because we were not sure what he meant. But he really literally meant these words. But he actually, somehow, because of his nature, he managed to make us feel, and I will talk for me personally, he made me feel that he's fine. My mom, of course, could not go back to sleep, and she was really on nails. Yeah, she was very concerned. I started to be concerned when the connection with him lost, because after that, his friends lost connection one by one. We had connection with one of them that was on the field, hiding inside a bush, hearing shots and yelling, and he was hiding for, I don't know, 10 hours, something like that, till he understood that it's safe enough to run away. And we actually scanned the internet for his name, for a photo of him, hospitals that published names of people that came there injured. And I was prepared to bury him. I was prepared to bury my little brother. But my younger sister, she was clever enough to post a picture of him. And after 3 or 4 hours, we got a screenshot, like my mom said. And I took my sister's phone because I knew what horrible, horrific videos Hamas posted in that day. And there we saw 5 young men. It was, of course, a propaganda video Hamas posted. There was 5 young men inside a dark room. They were all tied up by their legs and their hands, and they were terrified. All of them, they were all on their 20s or 30s. They were all abducted from the festival. And the cameraman was filming their faces closely because they wanted us to see the fear in their eyes. And that's something I cannot forget. This primal fear in my brother's eyes, looking right into the camera, which you saw, by the way, in the video that we shared with you. And the first feeling I felt was anger. I was furious. I punched the wall. I was wounded for the rest of the week because I felt so helpless. Like the someone pulled the carpet beneath me, and I felt I feel like the big brother need to protect the younger, and I felt in that. And we also recognized his best friend from kindergarten in the same video. And 24 hours later, I watched the news, and there was a woman and her daughter. By chance, she's sitting here, unfortunately, and they talked about their loved ones that was also kidnapped, and it was Almog Meir, and they posted their cell phone, and I called her, and it was Orit's daughter, and it was crazy because it was my brother in that video and her brother also in that video, the same video, and we cried to each other in that phone call. And then I understood that we're not alone. In this crazy, absurd situation, we're not alone. and we became some kind of big, weird family community. And we also understood that we have to fight. We're on a mission. We're on the mission of our lives. We have to fight, and we have to fight not only for our loved ones, but also for the family that cannot function. And there are so many. Because their house was burned, and the community was half demolished, and we had to do something also for them. We know nothing about their well-being right now, really zero. The Red Cross is not allowed to enter. We can only assume from the hostages that came back what's going on. We have no details about our loved ones, but we can assume that they are being abused on a daily basis, mentally, physically. The danger, they are in real life danger, and any day that passes, it becomes more dangerous, and it becomes more urgent for us to save them. And the most absurd part is that the only crime they committed was having fun, celebrating peace, celebrating brotherhood, celebrating their lives. They did no harm to anyone. They are citizens. And we somehow need to justify that. So I think that together we have more power. We need to demand their immediate, unconditioned release. And thank you again for listening. Thank you for hospitality. And we will bring them back home.
Thank you. אני שר פה, נכון? כן? אוקיי, שאני אדבר. We'd like you to now see the video of Almog Meir Jan, and then we're going to be joined by Orit and Aviram.
I'm looking at yourself and
ده ده خساره على كده لا والله هي كانت قويه والله غلط خلاص طيب
I can't sleep. All the time I am thinking about him. I saw his face. He covered himself, but he was looking frightened. It was very hard for me to see him like this. It's not my son. You know, my son is a happy guy.
My name is Orit and Meir, and this is my son Almog. We came in the area where the festival was, Nova Festival in Kibbutz Re'im. My son Almog was kidnapped from here, took him to Gaza. Gaza is over there.
Almog danced here, smiled here, had fun here, and in the end of it taken to Gaza.
Almog, please come back. We're waiting for you. Love you.
Good afternoon to everyone. Almog, my son, is 21 years old. He just finished his service in the army. And he was looking for a good job that he wanted. He found a job in communication in high-tech, and actually it was supposed to start at the October 8th, his new job. He went to celebrate in Nova Festival. My son loved music. I used to listen to him singing while he took a shower. He liked to dance. He used to go to Kinneret, to the north, to the south, everywhere to dance. And he went to Nova Festival. The area is a beautiful area. The festival was special for him because 4 DJs, different DJs around the world came to the festival. And at 5 o'clock, the 4th DJ with a, in the sunrise, he was supposed to start his music. And at 6:30 in the morning, starts all the tragedy in the area. Actually, Almog went to the party with a good friend of him, Tomer. Tomer came to pick him up on Friday night. And on Saturday, the 7th of October, he called me in the morning. He woke me up and said to me, Almog woke me up, my son. He said to me, Mom, they closed the festival. There are rockets all over and shooting. I don't know what is going on. I'm hiding. Mom, I'll call you every half an hour. I love you. And this was the last call from him. Actually, my son, he don't talk like this. I mean, at 7:45 in the morning, he loved me. Never said to me.
So I felt something's wrong, and I opened TV, and I understood something happened. I called my daughter. She published his picture, and it says who saw Almog. He was in Nova Festival, and after 3 hours, I got a phone call from someone who recognized him for the video clip. It's the same video clip that that Evyatar is there. And when I saw his face, I recognized him straight away. And I understood that my life they want me the same. 3 months passed already. I know nothing about my son. I know he's alive. That's the only thing I know. I don't know what he eats, where he sleeps, if he is staying in a ferry or he's down downwards,
Canals.
down the canals. I don't know if he wash himself, brush his teeth, nothing. And from all the hostages who released, we know that the conditions are terrible. It's hard, very hard. But we are full of hope that he is coming back. We know he's coming back. But we know that we have to do lots of things to bring him back. We decided we are a family who do things. There are lots of families that are staying at home and cry, but we are doing. And we are working. That's what we are doing. Before the 7th of October, I was a teacher, a kindergarten teacher. I prepared the kids for the first class. And now my mission is bringing my son home. My brother helped me with this mission. And all the family, not all. My brother is going with me to go. We are doing interviews. We're doing lots of things. I believe he continue. Thank you.
Good evening. I never know where to start. I have so many things to tell you, and I never will know what to start with. I will start with Nova Festival. Almog called Orit at about 7:45, but the party was over at 6:30. And it drives me crazy what happened in those 75 minutes when the party was over until he made his first call or last call. What happened in the ground was that there was a missile attack, massive missile attack from Gaza to the south, the east, and the north, but all the missile attack passed above the festival. So it was about 5-10 minutes of missiles, and then it was silence. So the police stopped the music, but the people continued to dance without music. At 6:45, a producer of the festival came to the police and asked him to continue with the music. They didn't assume what's coming next. At the same time, Hamas terrorists conquered Kibbutz Be'eri, which is 4 kilometers north of the Nova Festival. And in the south, there is the army base, which they conquered, and they conquered it very easily. So at about 7 o'clock or 10 past 7, they blocked the road. And the police started asking nicely from the people in the party to go with the cars home. And at about 8 past 7, cars started to return and to say that in Kibbutz Be'eri it's impossible to pass because terrorists shooting at the cars. And the terrorists understood that something is going on in the ground next to the kibbutz. So they started to go with their Toyotas and they discovered the party. They didn't know about the party. And they entered the party at about 7:30, 20 to 8, and started shooting all over. And this is the trigger of Almog to call his mother. After he called his mother, he entered his friend's car with another 2 girls, 2 sisters, Odaya and Ta'ir, from the family David. And they tried to escape from the party, but it was too late. The terrorists shot them and they had to leave the car. Ta'ir and Odaya ran to hide, and they called their father. And after 1 hour of 1 hour and a half of phone call, the father heard their last. The father heard their last breath. Tomer also ran away, hid, called his parents, told them about who was in the car, and they tried to escape, and have been murdered also. Tomer's body has been identified 2 weeks later. Almog is the only one from this car alive, as far as we know, because we don't know too much. Have time? Now, what are you doing? It's kind of situation that you don't imagine that you are going to be in. And I'm living in a kibbutz. Orit called me. I didn't know anything about the party. I didn't know anything about what's going on because in the north that time it was very quiet. It's Yom Kippur every day. And I went to the car with all my family. We went to Orit's house. And the only thing I told her is, let's work. Let's find out what's going on. And from there, we are working. As I say, we are throwing hooks to the Dead Sea. No, I'm not giving up. But this is what we do. If I could go to Gaza, bring it back, this is what I do. But I can't do it. We can't do it. They can do it. And another 129 families can do it. So what we do, we are gathering together. We have the family forum. We have the forum of the hostages. It's two different things helping us. The hostages of the forum is governmental, and it's working very good now. In the beginning, they were out of order. Disordered. The family forum rised in the first week. We gathered together and we acting together and we meet lots of families. The first advantage of the forum that we are working together. And as you see, all these pictures and those shirts and all the activity and the hostages plaza in Tel Aviv and all our publishing about it, it's in order to make sure that everybody is aware for the hostages. This is what we do in the last 3 months. And we'll continue, because in Almog's room, there is a send timer who's clicking all the time. And we don't have time. Thank you very much.
אני הולך שנייה, רק שנייה. So, ladies and gentlemen, just before we come to Q&A, I want to make some quick comments so that you can not only enjoy the Q&A session, but also you can meet with the families informally, as I hope you will do. First and foremost, to provide the context for our gathering here, when I was a young boy, I was taught a poem, and the poem referred to the attitudes of the nations of the world towards the Jewish people. It was penned by Amir Gilboa, who moved to what was then Palestine from Ukraine. And Amir Gilboa wrote there that, quote, Im yaruni etz ve'omar etz yomru etz, im yaruni even ve'omar even yomru even, ach im yaruni dam ve'omar dam yomru tseva. What Gilboa had written there about the attitudes of the nations of the world towards the Jewish people was, and I quote, if they, the nations of the world, show me a tree, and I as a Jew concur that it's a tree, they will say, yes, it's a tree. And if they show me a stone and I concur that it's a stone, they will say, yes, it's a stone. But if they show me my Jewish blood spilled, and I concur that it's my Jewish blood spilled, those nations will turn to me and they will say, it's not Jewish blood, it's just paint. It's just color. And after October 7th, when 1,200 of our men, women, children were murdered, beaten, raped, decapitated, abused, set alight, incinerated. Within 3 days, I was on the BBC defending the right of the Jewish people to fight, because what the State of Israel means is that the value of Jewish blood, of course, will never be relegated to nothing more than just spilled paint. But the international community, within 3 days, was already leveling its bogus charges against our right to go forward and to destroy this enemy. About that fight that you see going on inside the Gaza Strip, again, when 1,200 innocents are murdered in the most heinous, depraved manner in documented history, I would say, when 240 of our family, your family, are taken and thrown in dungeons, bound and beaten, filmed as such, and then those films broadcast for their mothers to see, we members of the Israel Defense Forces have no right but to fight and to win, by the way. And what you're seeing, as I said earlier, is the process of us winning. There is a Jewish phrase that sums all of this up beautifully. It's a standard. It says, "Bamakom she'en anashim ishtadel lihyot ish." in a place where there is no humanity, strive to be human. What you're seeing over there in Gaza at the hands of our soldiers is the steady, hard-fought, hard-won implementation of humanity in a place that hitherto was ruled by demons. And anything and everything that needs to be done in order for these people to be able to bring their families home, and for the people who have been converted into refugees in their own land, 300,000 Israelis at this time, approximately half of them from the southern enclave adjacent to the Gaza Strip. That must be done, should be done, can be done, and we should damn well fight this fight until absolute and total victory over this enemy. The final point before I come to questions, to taking your questions. Events have a way of tearing us from those things that we love the most. In 2006, there were 2 Israeli hostages who had been killed and kidnapped. Their names were Goldwasser and Regev. They were returned to us in body bags. They were kidnapped by Hezbollah, and these were the events that preceded our entry into southern Lebanon during the Second Lebanon War. There was another individual who was kidnapped at that time. A completely unknown name, a soldier in the tank unit, the Armored Corps, by the name of Gilad Shalit. And I lectured around communities here in the United States of America and beyond. And time after time after time, people would come to me obsequiously, quietly, furtively. And they'd ask me about Gilad Shalit. And they'd say to me things like, he's probably dead by now, isn't he? Some of you may have harbored these sorts of sentiments. There's no crime or shame in it. They said to me, given what they're doing to him, presumably, maybe it's best that he doesn't come home. And I said to them that we have absolutely no right to give up hope. For as long as we do not know otherwise, we are to presume that he is alive, and we are to presume and assume that he will come home to his land and to his family. And 5 years later, that is precisely what took place. And Gilad Shalit now lives a life that is wholly unexceptional. He lives a perfectly normal, normative, functioning life inside the state of Israel. And that is what all of these people here dream for their son, and for what everybody in Israel, for the remaining hostages, dreams for their children. And it's that hope that nobody here in this room has any right to forsake. And it's also that hope that each and every one of you embodies for each and every one of the people here in front of you. They are placing their hope, believe it or not, in you. And just to crystallize how desperately they are fighting this fight and how against their nature this is, I want to make mention of the 2 males up here. Eli David is studying physics at Hebrew University, having served in an elite unit in the Israel Defense Forces. This is nobody who needs to or is in the habit of asking for help. He is in the midst of plying his own destiny and future in a way that all of you would be proud of were he your son. Aviram Meir served in Sayeret Matkal as an officer. Sayeret Matkal, not the group that Aviram fought in, is the same unit that carried out successfully the raid on Entebbe. This is not a man who is in the habit of asking for assistance. These are the best of Israel. And those who are in captivity are the best of Israel. And every member of Israel is responsible one for the other. Is he not? And so what we want from you is we want you to connect us. There are people in this room who know members of the Senate, members of the House, policymakers, influencers, sports teams. You are in this room, and I know you're in this room. We need to keep the names of Almog Meir Jan and Evyatar David at the forefront of public consciousness. And there are too many people who are tweeting, Instagramming, posting the story of the Palestinian Arabs, and these people's families are being forgotten. And it's happening on our watch. And if you don't help us to engage with that, even in addition to all that I'm sure you're already doing, we'll have no right, after this is over, when the guns fall silent, to ask whatever it was we could have done. We need those relationships, we need those contacts, and we need those connections. If you know people in the media, connect us. If you know sports players, connect us. If you know influencers, connect us. Because what we need to do is make this personal. And step away from these people just being part of a greater number. With all of that, we'll be very pleased to take your questions here, now. I reiterate that downstairs there are bracelets on sale for $10, necklaces for $20, and pins for $5 in support and solidarity with these families. And if anybody has questions, please show your hands and I'll call upon you from the podium. Thank you for listening. Nobody has a question? Yes, madam.
What you're sharing with us is so unimaginable that it makes a nightmare sound good because that's not real. And this is so real and you make it so real. So I don't think you could represent your loved ones any better. I hope you go to Boston too. But my question is, given how you started, do you feel that you have the right, given that Israel and all of us are united with you, do you feel you have the right people looking for your kids? Do you have
Thank you. So the question, for the benefit of the recording, was, do we feel, and thank you for your kind words, do we feel that we have the right people looking for their sons? The right politicians, the right military, the right individuals? Who wants to take that question? Okay.
I can tell you that we are meeting with officials all the time. Personally, I met our Prime Minister last week. I met our Defense Minister last week.
cabinet?
I met the cabinet. I met the Interior Minister last week. We are in contact with them. And I can tell you that now, in our third month, they are acting. I feel, as a family, that they are working, and not just the officials. There are lots of not groups. איך אומרים גופי הביטחון? גופי הביטחון.
גורמי הביטחון.
Security agencies.
All the security agents are working. It's first time, and it's functioning now. There is a intelligence organization just for the kidnapped, and about 500, 600 officers are working there daily from the 7th of October. It took them time, but they are working and they are willing to bring them back and pay prices. This is what I feel from my personal conversations with them.
Thank you. Other questions, please? Yes, sir, on the aisle here. Yes. Yes. So the question's been asked. I don't know whether anyone wants to particularly answer the question because it's not necessarily within their hands, but I'll ask them to give an opinion on it. The question is, will the 45-minute video that shows the atrocities of October 7th be broadcast publicly? At the moment, it's being reserved for members of the press and media and elected officials from other countries and indeed from Israel, and it's not being put into the public sphere. So your question is, will it be broadcast because you feel it would be helpful to understand the situation? I'm not going to ask will it be, but Eli, do you think it should be? Do you have a view on that? She doesn't think so. Orit says she doesn't believe that it ought to be published. Eli?
I think that maybe some of us saw the videos that Hamas posted. I don't recommend. I think that also if it will be published, then you could choose if to watch it or not. So I think you understand where we're getting. I don't know if it will help on, I don't know, world opinion. And if officials watch that video, I think it's the most important, and it's horrific. It's the most horrific movie ever, I assume. So.
And seeing as we're in the business of asking for people's opinions, I'll just tell you that I take account of you. I think it should be published and I think it should be circulated. I don't think it should be published absent appropriate warnings about the nature of the content, as Eli alluded to. And Orit is not of the view that I am. But I think that the world is allowing itself to luxuriate in the ability to deny or question the veracity of what is said to have happened on October the 7th, and I think they should be abrogated of that right. I don't think they should be allowed to do that, and I think that the way to do that is to show documented evidence. But that's only an opinion. You've heard three different opinions, probably for three different reasons. We'll take another couple of questions. Rabbi, I wanted to ask if you'd move to the front and maybe conclude as we move towards the end of the program with the tefillah for Medinat Yisrael and Chayalim. Perhaps if you could do that. But yes, there's another question I saw. There was someone here. Yes, madam, please. Hi. Yes, you must speak to me. You must speak to Rosita afterwards. We will be around. The question was, if you have contact, should you speak to us? Yes, you absolutely should. We have business cards for each and every one of you. And there will be a follow-up email that's delivered to your inbox after this event with the Instagram page of Evyatar and with the Instagram page of Almog. And we want you not only to join that, but to actively follow it and to share it with all of your contacts. It's very, very important work. So the answer is yes. Another question. Yes, sir. So the gentleman said, away from what we've asked, is there anything else that they can do for the families?
I have to tell something to share with you that along the last 3 months, we met lots of very good people who helps us and want to help us. And now we are concentrating in our journey. The two forums that I mentioned before are giving us support. And I think what we need the most, it's not personal, it's awareness. We need you to talk about it in Shabbat table or every evening. We need awareness. We need that the subject won't get out of the headlines because it's getting more time, and every day is more difficult for the hostages and for the mothers. And what I talked before about the government. I think that the Israeli campaign for the hostages and the international campaign for the hostages just directed them to act. So public awareness is very important.
I would also, please, Eli, after you.
I think we have big influence on our elected officials. You can write to them, you can call them, you need to ask them every morning what they've done today or what they're planning to do today to bring them back home. And that's something America, USA has a big, very big, a huge role in that effort. They have a lot of influence on the Qataris, on the Egyptians. If you know people that have direct connection to the Qataris or the Egyptians, it also helps to give them a phone call, to email them. Also in our website, Bring Them Back Home, I know that there is a letter, a prepared letter, like a skits to send to your elected officials. If you don't know who's your elected official, enter your zip code there and it will show you. And as Aviram said, awareness, talk about it, make it personal.
Yeah, just to add to that a couple of points. The work such as this is not the work that our organization undertakes, because there is no organization that specializes in bringing public awareness about the Israelis who are kidnapped into the Gaza Strip by way of a horrific massacre. This is something that we do. This is something that we want support for because we intend to bring them back to Capitol Hill, to campuses, to communities throughout the coming semester and beyond. And that's why the purchasing of these bracelets, necklaces, pins is so very important. And we specifically want help and support and investment in ensuring that their word goes forward. In terms of what Eli said, and that's the work of the Miriam Institute. The Miriam Institute is responsible for these delegations, the delegations in Britain, the delegation in New York, and everything that's going forward. The other thing that I would say is, when you contact an elected official, I believe that they assume that you're representing the opinion of approximately 100,000 constituents. I mean, this obviously fluctuates from area to area. So what Eli mentioned is so important, and you live in such an incredible democracy. You should really be grabbing hold of the levers of democracy and pulling down on them with maximal force. And there is no greater player right now than the United States government in the negotiations that are underway. We need to personalize this. I would like to see that these names are mentioned during the negotiations, quite frankly. That's what I would like to see bring about. Yes, sir. On this trip, we're not. We're not doing that on this trip. On this trip, we've actually come to meet communities. We've come to meet communities because we're already lining up for the month of February to start those meetings, to bring them to the Hill, to have them meet with elected officials, to have them meet. We want to meet with the president. We want to meet with the president. We want to meet with the negotiating team. We want to meet with the Qatari ambassador. This is the sort of stuff that we want to do. And we know that there are people in this room who can do that, who can bring it about, and we're asking them to understand that for this moment they're here. This is the reason that they have those contacts and those connections. We did that to great effect in the UK recently. We're going to do it again now in the United States. So if you have those and you want to facilitate that for us, please do it. We'll set about that immediately. And if we need to bring it forward, we'll bring it forward as well and not wait until February. Thank you for your question. Anyone else have a question? Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. Very compelling. Obviously, my wife and I live this news every day.
Yes.
I don't hear anything about the American hostages. Is there a similar group that's trying to give the voice to the American hostages? Because the American people, with all due respect to your message, have to hear that we've got our own hostages, and they don't hear about it.
Do you mean known hostages inside the Gaza Strip? Yes. So the
I don't minimize your message, but I'm not hearing the story of American hostages, and I think you've got to get that story coupled to your story.
so the gentleman's asked a question about whether or not we feel people are hearing sufficiently about American hostages who are inside the Gaza Strip as well. I can't speak to the coverage of that. I think that the general problem that we're facing is that the story of adult hostages, or even remaining hostages, to be perfectly frank, is reducing in terms of the space that it holds in the broadcasts of any major network at this time. And we want to remedy that. Now, what I do want to say is the families of American hostages have met with the president. They have met with the president, Aviram. Yeah, and on Hanukkah they met with him, and they've also traveled to the Hill. And I think that what you said, incidentally, about that phrase, coupling the American hostages to this situation is something that we intend to be doing as we bring them back in February. We were seeking to do it in the UK. We couldn't do it with a British hostage. There are multiple nationalities that are being held hostage. We couldn't do it because of a particular circumstance I'm not at liberty to speak about right now, but we will be doing that. We aim to do that in the United States. And by the way, we can bring as many as we have funding for. This, as I said, is funded by the organization, by the Institute. These people have left their homes, they've flown to California, they're here in Aspen, they're in Vail tomorrow, and they're in New York. So as many as we're able to bring, we will bring. And that's where you can also partner with us, sir. I'll take one last question, I think. Yes, okay. I'll double barrel them. Go on.
What you have presented tonight is probably the most poignant, life-hurting, and emotional presentation I've seen put together regarding our plight together in Israel. Is someone editing a piece of this presentation so that we can use it with
Yes.
our public officials? Because you can't get everyone. You can't talk to everyone of them as much as you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're willing, all of us, I'm sure, after hearing this, to
Yeah.
talk to not only our representatives, but the ones that can do something.
Yes, so I will answer that directly, and then I'll come to the lady to round off the question. So the gentleman asked, are we putting out anything edited so that you can send this to your contact list? The answer is yes. There is a video being put together here. It's in the contract that the video will be with us within 48 to 72 hours. Right? Rosita's a tough negotiator, so that's in the contract. So I'm sure our guys here, our photographers, will stand by that. And we will send it to you by way of your email. And we do ask you, please, yes, put that out there, show it to everyone. There's also another interview that I want all of you to please put out there. I interviewed a lady named Iris Chaim. Iris Chaim's son, Yotam Chaim, was kidnapped on October the 7th. He was one of the 3 hostages who emerged on December the 15th and was tragically killed by IDF soldiers inside the Gaza Strip, even as he was seeking to be rescued, along with 2 others. There is an hour and a half long interview with the woman, Iris Chaim, who explains her compassion for the soldiers who did that, how she invited those soldiers to her home to tell them to keep on fighting, to not feel guilty, that she loves them, and how she feels that it's possible, it's the most incredible interview, it's possible that her son Yotam is in the best place that he might be, having struggled all his life with a number of physical and psychological challenges. So I want that to be shown to as many people as possible. It's the only long-form English language interview that she has given. So I'll email that to you, sir, and I'll be grateful if you can send it. I'm assuming you're on you signed up for tonight. The lady here, if you have a... No, this lady, I'm sorry. I apologize. So the question was, given the intensity of the bombing raids over the Gaza Strip, that you understand, are the families of the hostages concerned about that when it comes to the safety of those hostages? Orit, את רוצה לענות? אילי?
בסדר, נעזור לך.
Actually, it's hard for me because I believe, my son, before he went to the festival, I asked him where is the festival, because they change the places sometimes. So this time he said to me, it's this house. So I said to him, it's very close to Gaza. So he said to me, so what? They got the insurance from the army, from the police, from the area. He trusted. I know that the army working. They do. The soldiers. I tell you another story. This week I went. I walked on the street and a car stopped next to me. There was a soldier who picked up his friend, and the car was the army car. And I was wearing this T-shirt, and I said to him, well, where are you going? So he said, we're going to Gaza, going into Gaza now. And he was looking at the T-shirt and he said to me, this is your son? And he said to me, I said, yes, of course. I told him the story, and he said to me, all the soldiers are full of motivation to get them out. That's what we do. So I trust the army, but sometimes they are.
It's a war.
It's a war, and I'm worried, very worried.
Can I help? Yesterday, I believe Israel assassinated one of the Hamas leaders somewhere in Lebanon. When my wife called me here and told me that this event occurred, the first question I asked, is it good to the hostages? I don't know if it's good to the hostages. We are full of worry all the time, but we know that the military operation is what will bring the hostages, I believe, or at least the agreements with the Hamas for releasing hostages. If there were other effective ways, I believe we would fight for it.
Thank you.
My son is a citizen in Israel, and Israel must bring them back. Must. It won't be the same. We can't build again Israel if they won't come back. They must come back.
I'll ask our guests to share the prayer, We'll answer Amen in the Hebrew, of those defending and fighting for Israel, that they succeed and return with everyone home safely.
מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, ומכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויעטרם בכתר ישועה, ובעטרת ניצחון. ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם ולומר אמן.
Thank you all. May we hear good news now. Thank you, Ben, and thank you to all our guests.
And can we conclude with Hatikva? כל עוד בלבב פנימה, נפש יהודי הומייה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה, עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים, להיות חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים.